Today, as we look at our Google Sheets example, you may be surprised to see that there's more than one sheet tab at the bottom of your screen. And that's because I think we need to discuss the use of sheet tabs within a file. So, for example, let's say that you have a spreadsheet that you want to use throughout the year, and you'll create a separate spreadsheet for each month. But rather than create a separate file for each month, what you can do is create a simple sheet for each one of those months and then save all of that, all 12 sheets, to one file within Google Sheets. That just is such a great help for you as you search through files and try to find information. So we will look at multiple worksheet tabs within one file today, and we're going to add and delete and navigate and do all sorts of things so that the end of our time together, you should feel really comfortable with using Google Sheets and multiple sheet tabs within that one file. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists with Mid-Continent Public Library, and let's look at that multi-sheet file within Google Sheets. Let's start by reviewing some of the basic concepts in Google Sheets. And so as we look on the left-hand side, we can see a column of numbers. Well, each one of those numbers is the name of a row, and the rows go across the screen. By the same token, then, we have letters that are arranged horizontally across the screen, and each one of those letters is a column name, and columns are vertical and go up and down the screen. The intersection of a row and a column is called a cell, and the cell gets its name from a combination of the column letter and the row number. So in this case, I've clicked in E7. Now, there are a lot of cells that are visible, and of course a whole lot more that are even not visible on the screen right now. And this huge work area of cell after cell after cell is a sheet. And as we look at the bottom of my screen here, we can see that we have more than one sheet. Now, sheets usually starts with only one, but then I have added many more sheets just so that we could use this as an example today. So how can I tell what sheet I'm on? Well, I can go down and find, for example, sheet 4, click on it, and notice how the tab has turned white, a brighter white maybe, than the other tabs, and this becomes the active sheet. Each sheet works independently of all of the other sheets. So for example, in sheet 1, I might have a chart of some kind. In sheet 2, I might have tables. In sheet 3, I might do all sorts of math calculations. And so when I format and then print, I need to be very careful to remember that each one of these sheets is its own unique entity within the file. And Sheets tends to call the file the spreadsheet. All right, so as we look at this then, well, can we use multiple sheets? Well, we might say, oh, you know what, I need to do an inventory, and so I'm going to inventory each room separately, and each room is going to have its own sheet. It could be that I want to have a collection of CDs, and maybe I want to arrange it by different genres, and so the different kinds of music that I have in my CD collection could be a different sheet tab. In other words, these sheet tabs are just up to you and how you want to arrange them and the kinds of information that you want to add in. First of all, let's go to the right of sheet 1 and even farther over, and at the far right, we have two little navigation arrows. Now, the one pointing to the right says it's going to scroll to the right, so I can click that, and it takes me to the last sheet, sheet 10. If I click on the one that says scroll left, I can click on it and it takes me to the very beginning. Now, there doesn't seem to be any intermediate kinds of finding a tab unless I click on the tab and make it the active tab. However, if you go to the left of sheet 1, you can see that this icon has several parallel horizontal lines, and it kind of looks like maybe a stack of sheets. And when we click on it, we can see that it lists all of the sheets that are in this particular file in the order that they are currently arranged. So if I want to go to sheet 9, for example, I just click and it takes me directly to sheet 9. Now, with only 10 sheets, this may not be a problem, but we can have up to 200 sheets in any file. So if I want to get to sheet 175, it makes a lot of sense to come to this little icon and select 175 from that list, as opposed to scrolling over to the right and scrolling over to the right and trying to get to 175 from the left. We might also decide that we need to add more sheets. So let me go back to that left navigation arrow, get to sheet number 1, click on it to activate it, and then the plus sign just to the left of our All Sheets icon is Add Sheet. So I can click on the plus sign and it will let me add another sheet. Now notice that that sheet is added just to the right of where I was clicked. I could also add a worksheet another way. So if you like keyboard shortcuts, we could use Shift and then F11. Press it, and now you can see that I've also added sheet 12. And again, the new sheet is added just to the right of the previous tab, or the one that was selected. If I decide that I want to move sheet 12 someplace, one of the things that I can do is just click on it. And as I start to drag, and I just have my finger on my left mouse button here, you can see that I get an icon that is 4 arrows. So it kind of implies I could drag in any direction, not quite, but to the right, certainly. And notice that even as I get halfway over the next sheet tab, it just sort of goes pop right into the left and makes room for the new sheet. And as I drag, there goes another one. It's kind of about halfway, and then I move all the way into that new space that's been made for this sheet as I drag it to the right. And certainly when I drag it to the left, I have those same possibilities. So it's very easy to change the order of the sheets if that is something that you need to do. Well, let's come back to sheet 1. And whether we right-click on that sheet tab, or whether we click the down arrow that's just to the right of the sheet name, we get a shortcut menu. And starting at the top of that shortcut menu, the very first choice here is delete. So let me delete sheet 1. And we get a message that reminds us that we are really deleting everything on that particular work area. And it could be even that you might accidentally have something hidden beyond what you can see on the screen. So be a little careful when you delete. And sometimes people will have formulas where they refer one sheet to another sheet. And for example, sheet 1 could have information that you use in a formula in sheet 5. So be careful when you delete that you're not removing very important information. But, you know, this is pretty blank, so we're just going to click OK, and sheet 1 is gone, and we have sheet 11 now as the first sheet. Well, let's see what else we can do. So let's click on that drop-down arrow, and the next thing is duplicate, which simply means copy. So if we had something that was interesting, we could duplicate sheet 11. Matter of fact, let me just put something here, just so we can say that we have something interesting. This is a spreadsheet. Now let's duplicate. And when we do, the copy of sheet 11 has now shown up just to the right of sheet 11. and they both say the same thing. And of course, we will look at renaming these so they have better, more meaningful names in just a second. Well, besides doing that copy, we could also, if we click on the drop down here, and again, the copy is really just duplicate, we can copy to. So let's look at that. So copy to new spreadsheet is really a new file within Google Sheets. Let me click. So it copies it, but then if I open the spreadsheet, it's just a new blank spreadsheet with only that tab in it, sheet 11. Isn't that interesting? But this is really nice because if you have, say, 50 sheets and you have someone who says, you know, I'm really interested in sheet 11 only, you could give them a copy of sheet 11 only by using that particular method. Well, let's see what else we can do here. Let me close that tab. And this takes us back then to our original. And let's come down to that tab again, sheet 11. Click the drop down because we had another choice. So copy to, we could copy to an existing spreadsheet as well. So this is a file that has already been created and we are adding one of our spreadsheets, one of our worksheets here, sheet 11, to that existing file. So let's click that. And it immediately for me is going to my drive as a default. And then I could look through, for example, I have video examples here that I could open, and then it has all of these different files that I have created at one point or another, and I could make a copy of sheet 11 and add it to any of these existing sheets. Well, I'm going to go ahead and just close out so we can get back. But that would be, again, a nice way to take a sheet and you say, oh my goodness, this was great at the time, but I need to move it. Well, that's an easy way to do that. Let's see what else we have here. So besides copy to, we also have rename. And when I click rename, I get not only a border kind of around where the text area is on that tab, but I also see blue highlighting behind sheet 11. So I could type January and press enter. Besides using the drop down, I should also be able to come over to copy of sheet 11 and just do a double click on that text. And again, I get that blue border around the text box and a blue highlight behind the name of that tab. And then I could type February. And then let's go over to sheet 3 and 2 and do even a right click. And of course, I get that same shortcut menu, but let's do a rename here as well, and we'll call it March. And press enter. Now let's go back to our January tab and click the drop down because we could also change the color. And changing the color of a tab can be really helpful. And whether it's the fact that you have 12 tabs, one for each month, and then you decide that color coding, say by different quarters would be helpful, you could do that. You might decide that you have, say, expired information, current information, and then maybe things that you have on order that you're hoping to get that would be sort of anticipated information, and you could have 3 colors that way. If you have different floors of a building or different divisions within a company, you could certainly color code with those as well. So changing colors can be a really nice tool. We'll just come to change color and say choose red. And so January now has a nice red horizontal line at the very bottom of that tab. Well, let's go to February, click its drop down and change color, and we'll just pick another color. And that looks pretty nice. Now with March, let's do one more. Let's click the drop down here, change the color, except this time let's look at custom. And with custom, we get, well, first of all, we could type the hexadecimal, equivalent of that color, and if you know how your colors are defined, you could type that number, and sometimes companies actually provide that information. But we could also come to the upper right where we've got this red dot and just kind of click and drag down, and as you click and drag down, you can see that the color changes a little bit, and you can certainly pinpoint precisely what you would like to have, and then of course that hex number will help you out there. But you could also come down to this slider bar where it says hue, and as we click and drag from left to right, well, we kind of go from red to orange to, oh, look at that, kind of a green, wow, to a green, and then kind of a blue-green going into the, oh, that's kind of a nice little turquoise, isn't it? So we can just use the slider bar to pick a color that we like. And again, of course, we could also kind of slide down and figure out if it's darker or lighter, all sorts of different shades. So we'll click OK and come up with a custom color for March. Well, let's see what else we have here. Let's go back to January, click on the drop down arrow, and besides color, we could protect the sheet, and we're going to create a future video on protecting sheets. But protecting sheets can be important in that you've worked really hard on figuring out what a formula is, and you want to protect it from someone overwriting it inadvertently. You might have, say, Social Security numbers that you want to be sure no one overwrites. So again, and especially if you share, although sometimes you can even overtype your own stuff. So you want to protect that sheet, then this is a really good way to do that. Hiding the sheet, the problem with hiding sheets is that you might forget that you hid a sheet and then you can't find it, so you won't remember to unhide it. But certainly you could hide a sheet just like you can hide rows and columns. Now another thing that we can do is this move right. So I have January here, and when I click move right, then this is just simply another way to move a sheet tab. But it takes 2 clicks instead of a simple click and drag. So I think most people probably prefer clicking and dragging rather than using this click and then move right method, or I could click and move left. So those moving sheet tabs, this just gives you another way to do that. And so today we have, of course, added sheets. We've navigated through them a little bit, found ones within a list, and activated specific ones. And then by using that drop-down arrow, we have also managed to delete a tab. We've duplicated our sheets. We've copied them to various places, renamed them, changed their colors, and again, moved them around in slightly different ways. To learn even more, visit our mymcpl.org/online learning page, where you will find some really great online resources, which include Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, and Learning Express Library. Tune in each week as we introduce new videos on a variety of tech topics. You can find us at 1 o'clock on Wednesday and Friday and 2 o'clock on Tuesday. Be sure to find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, or if you prefer, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at MCPLMO, where you can find our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist.